The gate wasn't subtle. Tall steel frame. Clear signage. Private road marked in plain language. No confusion. Which is why I noticed the tire tracks immediately. They cut straight through the gravel, past the gate, like it wasn't there at all. At first, I assumed it was a mistake. Someone unfamiliar with the area. Maybe a delivery driver following an old map. It happens on rural land more often than people think. But then it happened again. Same tracks. Same direction. Same timing. Always mid-morning. Always clean entry and exit. No hesitation marks. No signs of turning around. Whoever it was, they knew exactly where they were going. I checked the camera mounted near the gate. Scrolled back to the previous day. Then the day before that. And there she was. Karen. The HOA's unofficial enforcer. Clipboard carrier. Rule reciter. The kind of person who treats property lines like suggestions when they don't benefit her. She didn't slow down at the gate. Didn't roll down her window. Didn't check the sign. She drove straight through, tires crunching gravel, like the road had always belonged to her. I watched the footage twice. Then a third time. No emergency. No confusion. No detour attempt. Just entitlement on 4 wheels. The ranch road cut a good 5 minutes off her commute. That's what this was about. Convenience disguised as confidence. I didn't confront her. I didn't call the HOA. I logged the times. Saved the clips. Took photos of the tracks while they were still fresh in the gravel. Because gates are polite. They ask people to respect boundaries. And when someone keeps driving through them anyway, they're telling you something important. They don't think the boundary applies to them. That's when I realized a gate wasn't enough. Not for someone who treats rules as optional. And that's when I started planning something that didn't rely on signs, emails, or arguments. Something simple, permanent, and impossible to ignore. The next time she drove through, I was watching live. Not standing at the gate, just monitoring the camera feed from my desk. Same car, same timing, same confidence. She didn't even glance at the sign. By then, I'd already sent a formal notice to the HOA. Short, precise, attached with still frames from the footage and timestamps highlighted in yellow. Unauthorized vehicle access. Private road. Repeated entries. I didn't accuse. I didn't demand. I informed. The response came back the same afternoon, and it told me exactly how this was going to go. The HOA president replied on Karen's behalf. They claimed the road had been historically used by residents. That restricting access created hardship. That Karen was acting in good faith to reach community-adjacent property. Good faith. That phrase gets used a lot when there's no legal footing underneath it. They asked me to temporarily suspend enforcement while the board reviewed options. They even suggested adding the road to the HOA's maintenance plan, as if that could retroactively create ownership. I declined. Politely. In writing. I reminded them the road was deeded as part of the ranch, maintained solely by me, and clearly marked. I attached a copy of the survey and a county record showing the boundary line running straight through the gate. Then I waited. Karen didn't. 2 days later, the camera caught her again, this time with a passenger. She slowed slightly at the gate, as if expecting resistance. When nothing stopped her, she smiled and kept going. That smile mattered. It told me she believed the HOA would shield her, that emails and titles and board positions were armor. People behave differently when they think consequences won't touch them. I took screenshots, saved the clip, added it to the growing folder. Then I called a contractor. Not a lawyer, not the HOA. A contractor. I asked one simple question. What's the most effective way to physically stop a vehicle without causing damage or confrontation? He didn't hesitate. Steel bollards, he said. Set deep. Fixed. Visible. No guessing. I scheduled the installation for the following week. No announcement. No warning. Because at this point, I wasn't dealing with misunderstanding. I was dealing with assumption. And assumptions collapse fastest when reality doesn't move out of the way. The installation took 1 day. 3 steel bollards, spaced precisely, anchored deep into concrete. Tall enough to be unmistakable. bright enough to be seen from a distance, positioned so that no vehicle could slip through without touching anything else. No traps. No surprises. Just a clear, physical boundary. The next morning, I checked the camera feed with my coffee still cooling on the desk. Karen arrived right on schedule. Same car. Same speed. Same expectation. She slowed as she approached the gate, then stopped. The Bollards stood there, silent and unmoving, cutting the road cleanly in two. She sat in the car for a long moment, looked left, looked right, inched forward an inch, then stopped again. There was no path around them. No shoulder wide enough. No way to squeeze through without making a very bad decision. She got out of the car, stood there with her hands on her hips, staring at the posts like they'd personally offended her. I watched calmly. She paced, checked the spacing, tried to peer past them like the road might reappear if she looked hard enough. Then she pulled out her phone. I already knew who she was calling. Within an hour, I got an email, this time marked urgent. The HOA accused me of escalating the situation, claimed the Bollards were hostile infrastructure, warned that restricting access could lead to liability concerns. I replied with one sentence. Unauthorized access has been physically prevented. No damage has occurred. No threats. No commentary. Just fact. Karen eventually got back into her car and turned around, gravel crunching as she reversed direction for the first time in weeks. She was late to wherever she was going. That mattered too, because inconvenience is often the first consequence someone like her ever experiences. The camera never showed her trying again, but it did show something else. Other residents approaching the gate, stopping, reading the sign, and turning around without incident. Boundaries work when they're respected, and when they aren't, they work even better when they're made of steel. The silence didn't last long. By the next afternoon, my inbox filled up, emails forwarded, replies stacked on replies, subject lines growing longer with every pass. The HOA had shifted from denial to damage control. They claimed the Bollards violated community aesthetics. They questioned whether I'd pulled permits. They warned, again, about liability. It was a familiar pattern. Throw everything at the wall and hope something sticks. I responded once. I attached the permit, the installation invoice, the survey map. Then I stopped replying. Karen, on the other hand, did not. She showed up at the gate that evening, not in her car this time, but on foot. The camera caught her walking right up to the Bollards, examining them closely, like she was looking for a flaw. She tried the space between them with her shoulders. Too narrow. She looked around, as if expecting someone to appear and explain this to her differently. No one did. The next day, the HOA sent a formal notice demanding removal of the Bollards within 10 days. They cited community access concerns and long-standing usage patterns. I forwarded the notice to my attorney. He replied with a single line. Let them try. At the following board meeting, the issue was raised publicly for the first time. Karen spoke at length about safety, about fairness, about how no one should be blocked from using a road they've always used. Then someone asked a simple question. Who owns the road? The room went quiet. No one answered, because by then everyone knew. The Bollards stayed. The road stayed private. And the HOA's leverage quietly evaporated. All that was left was one final move. And it wouldn't come from Karen. A week passed. Then two. Nothing happened. No fines. No lawsuits. No emergency meetings. The HOA didn't send another notice. Karen didn't return to the gate. Not by car, not on foot. The road that once saved her 5 minutes stayed closed to everyone but me. And the world didn't end. The ranch ran the same way it always had. Deliveries adjusted. Maps updated. People found alternate routes. Life rerouted itself around a boundary it had finally learned to respect. At the next HOA meeting, the agenda skipped right over the issue. No mention of Bollards. No vote. No discussion. It was as if the road had never existed. That, more than anything, confirmed it was over. When authority fails publicly, it rarely admits defeat. It just goes quiet and moves on. I still check the camera out of habit. The bollards haven't moved. The gravel stays undisturbed. No fresh tire tracks. No footprints. Just steel, concrete, and clarity. The funny thing is, I didn't install them to make a statement. I installed them because boundaries need to be unambiguous. Signs can be ignored. Emails can be argued. Assumptions can linger. But steel doesn't negotiate. And once that lesson was learned, everything settled back into place. The ranch stayed quiet. The gate stayed closed. And the road finally became what it had always been.
Mine.